Hello. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Sea Ranch Forum. Those who braved the wet weather today to come out to the Del Mar Center Hall in person, those who are joining us on Zoom, and later, those who will be watching us on YouTube. My name is Linda McCabe, and I'm currently the chair of the Sea Ranch Forum. As always, we start with safety instructions. For those new to the space, there are no bathrooms in this building. They are out that door across the sidewalk to the white building on this level. And if you need to leave, the doors with the word exit over top are your friends. And may we never need this, but there is an AED on this wall. This would also be a great time to turn off the ringer to your phones. The history of the Sea Ranch Forum, this was founded in 1973 as an independent group of sea ranchers to organize meetings of public interest and has never been an official committee of the Sea Ranch Association, making it independent of the association and its board of directors. Today's forum is Apex Predators Among Us, and is a joint effort with the Ecology Subcommittee of the Planning Committee. And I would like to thank Roberta Chan and Diane Heachwa for their help. Now, with the prevalent use of critter cams, we now have video evidence of these large animals prowling around our homes that we built in their habitat. Recently, there have been multiple examples of households in the Mendonoma community where bears have torn apart garbage enclosures and attacked patios where barbecue grills are stored. Today, we will hear from experts on mountain lions and bears. We'll also have speakers who will discuss ways to handle our household garbage to minimize our impacts on these animals and not to encourage them to become nuisances. Our first speaker is Dr. Winston Vickers. He is a local veterinarian who has directed and participated in research on mountain lions in California, including here in the Mendonoma region for the last 21 years. His research into mountain lions has involved the ecology, sources of mortality, connectivity, infectious diseases, genetics, and interactions with humans. He is the director of a film project that has created a series of short and full-length documentary films about mountain lions in California. He will talk about all aspects of mountain lions in our region and how they fit into the larger picture of mountain lions in our state. Okay, go ahead.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Linda. Share my screen.
Oh, sorry.
Kicked me
And
off,
somehow
too.
or another you got off of that, and I'm going to pin you.
I'm on Zoom.
That's, you're changing computers. So you should be able to,
Yeah, I can just stay with this. Click it on the share. Okay, cool.
we just have to click this. There we go.
So I'm Winston Vickers, as introduced.
Speak into the microphone so we can all hear you really well.
How about now? Is that
That's
better? Thank you. So Winston Vickers, I'm a veterinarian. I've been a veterinarian for quite some time, 4 decades. Practiced on small animals, large animals, zoo animals, et cetera, for 20 years, and then started doing wildlife work as well as continuing to do small animal work. My wife and I live here now in Sea Ranch, just up the street on Leeward. And, my wildlife work has been a variety of species, but very heavily focused on mountain lions over the years. So I'm going to talk about things that I'm going to try to emphasize things that I've heard from people around the community here that have asked me questions. I'm going to try to focus on those, but also talk a little bit about the broader picture of mountain lions in California. Go ahead. I want to acknowledge that all of the knowledge we have about mountain lions in California comes from a wide array of institutions and entities and researchers and collaborators. It's a huge group of people that in one way or another have contributed to what we know, along with the veterinarians, other veterinarians, and all the biologists that have worked so hard to do this work. It's very difficult work. The mountain lions, Puma concolor, they have a lot of different names: mountain lion, puma, cougar, panther, in the case of Florida, mountain lions. Catamount is a kind of a southern term for mountain lions. So they have a wide array of names. They're wide ranging, and in this area of California, their home ranges range from 50 to 150 square miles. So the males have very large home ranges. And so if one comes around, he's not going to hang around very long unless he's feeding, because he's got to patrol a really big territory. They typically in this area in California live 70 to or weigh 70 to 90 pounds. For females, males 130 to 165. They have 2 to 4 kittens per litter, and 1 to 2 kittens survive to dispersal. And sometimes people ask me about, well, I saw something, I thought it might be a mountain lion, might be a bobcat. Well, here's to give you an example of relative sizes. So this is a female. She weighed about 90 pounds, so she's a pretty good sized female. And the same camera took this next picture the same night. That's a bobcat. So hopefully you get the picture here, what the difference in size is. And then the same night, same camera, a domestic cat. So that's your whole size range right there to give you an idea. And you noticed on the bobcat, it had a very short tail. Sometimes bobcats have a bit longer tail, but not anywhere near a mountain lion's length. Even a mountain lion kitten's tail will be around a third of its body length, so it'll be long. And then, of course, coyotes, same passageways. Deer, same passageways. These creek beds, these are highways, for wildlife. And so that's why mountain lions go there. They're looking for prey. They're kind of hard to study. They're hard to see. They are good ambush predators. Can you see the mountain lion in the picture? Right there. And I took that picture standing about that distance that you can see there, actually while we were setting traps to catch that mountain lion, and it was watching us set the trap. We didn't know it until somebody happened to look around and see it there. But it ended up going in the trap. So what's their value? Why do we even care? The department Cal Fish and Wildlife has a good statement there on their website. It strives to conserve mountain lions for their ecological and intrinsic values. So ecologically, they have a huge role to play as top-down regulators of the ecosystem. They regulate other wildlife, deer, all kinds of other animals that they eat, so they regulate their populations. And other animals benefit from that. Regulating some of the smaller carnivores helps ground nesting birds. They benefit other species that feed on their kills. Large numbers of other animals feed on the kills and the food that the mountain lion leaves behind, including other carnivores, including bears. They are kind of fond of stealing the kills, actually. So one question, when I started studying mountain lions, we were actually studying bighorn sheep in Southern California. And we didn't really have any concern about mountain lions because at that point in California, and still, they're not hunted. They're not a hunting season. And so I think pretty much everyone assumed that they were fine. But as we started putting GPS collars on the mountain lions to study the bighorn, their impacts on the bighorns, they were dying a lot. They were dying really frequently. And so we became concerned about, what was going on in the mountain lion population. And so we started trying to capture them. And so part of that effort is good old dirt time, just looking for tracks, looking for scrapes. They do a scraping action with their back feet, and then they'll pee, on the pile of dirt that they scrape up. And that's a territorial marking thing. And that's one of our devoted biologists there sniffing it, confirming that it's urine. We might find a kill. We might just happen upon a deer. And sometimes I've had people ask me about this here, is how do you tell if it's a mountain lion that's feeding on a deer that they found, somewhere close to their house or something? Well, mountain lions have specific feeding patterns. They tend to feed into the chest first. They tend to shear the ribs pretty cleanly. It looks like they were cut, with a saw. And they feed into the chest and eat the heart and the lungs and the liver first. And then they'll feed on the other parts of the body. They pretty much fully consume a deer, though. And a big deer might take them a week or so to do that. And so they'll be around. If you do happen to find a deer that looks like it's being fed on, then and it's a mountain lion, they could be close by. So it's good to be aware of that. Other things that are signals of a mountain lion, they'll eat the big bones, whereas coyotes won't. Now, bears can probably crush those big bones, but if you see the big femur and those kinds of big bones crushed, then it very well could be a mountain lion. And they tend to cache their kills. So they'll oftentimes, if there's a dead deer, it'll be covered over with brush or leaves and that kind of thing. The trail cameras were our biggest, besides GPS and the collars, having trail cameras, especially digital trail cameras, has been a huge boon for wildlife research. And this, in the picture there on the left, is Kate Rimpson, who's sitting here, who's with the Audubon Canyon Ranch Project and the True Wilds Living with Lions Project here in Sonoma County. And she's my co-partner on the film that we did about mountain lions in California. So she works on their camera project. They have about 180 cameras out, is that correct? So that's a wide array of cameras tracking the populations. And that allows figuring out where they're traveling and also getting rough ideas of what their population trend is. I'd like to talk about, because everybody asks about the risk and, how likely is it that I might get attacked by a mountain lion? And it's incredibly rare, more rare than shark attacks. The Wildlife Health or the CDFW website says a person 1,000 times more likely to be struck by lightning than attacked by a mountain lion. So it's an incredibly rare but incredibly auspicious event, or incredibly difficult event if it does occur. So you do need to be aware it can occur. There was a young man killed in the Sierras last year, and his brother attacked as well. So it does occur, but it's incredibly rare. And most people actually survive mountain lion attacks, especially if there was someone with them, to help get the mountain lion off of them. There was a couple in the Sierras a few years ago, older couple, that the man was attacked, and his wife dissuaded the mountain lion and got the mountain lion to turn him loose by poking it in the face with a ballpoint pen. So if you're attacked, just fight with whatever you've got. And children and adults of smaller stature, rapid or erratic movement, and people alone are at greater risk statistically. So safety tips from CDFW are not to hike, bike, or jog at dawn, dusk, or night. Avoid doing those things alone. Of course, plenty of us like to go out there on our own. So it's, it's still an incredibly rare event, so I don't discourage that, but that's what they say. Stay alert. I think mainly people that have had good experiences when they have encountered a mountain lion is they spotted the mountain lion before it was, like right in their face. So they had some time to react to it. Never approach them because if there's one that you can see to approach, it might be a female with kittens, and those are the ones most likely to be aggressive, just like bears. Don't run, stay calm, don't turn your back, face the animal. Loud noises, try to look big. Some people carry bear spray, some people carry air horns. I mean, these are all things that can be dissuasive. In the 20 years that we've been studying mountain lions and innumerable, contacts with them, we've only had one presumed maybe attack, and it was a female with kittens, and she charged the biologist, but she was dissuaded by bear spray. I think she was just bluff charging him to get him to leave, but he wasn't going to take any chances. So the way we capture them is we take roadkill deer, we put them around where we know they're traveling. Once they start feeding on the roadkill deer, we'll set a baited trap. And once we set the trap, we don't leave the area. So we stayed close by. Transmitters are on the trap so we know when it closed, or we may have a cell camera on it that we can actually see the images. So we know when they're in the trap, and then we sedate them with either a dart or a jab stick. Walk through traps, Quentin Martins of the ACR project or True Wild has kind of perfected these. They're a nice way to catch them as well. And once they're sedated, we treat them just like any animal that would be under anesthesia in a veterinary hospital. We have monitors on them. We take samples. They're managed by either a wildlife veterinarian or a wildlife biologist that's very experienced. And then we are really careful about fitting the collars so they're not too tight and they won't become too tight. If we're dealing with a relatively young animal that's going to grow, we put drop-off mechanisms on them that will drop off within a few months, usually 6 months or so, depending on their size. And then others can wear them longer, but they do eventually drop off with timers. And we measure things like teeth and claws and pads and do all the measurements you would expect. So what have we learned? They have, I love this picture because of the eyes. That's about a 2-week-old mountain lion. They still have really blue eyes. I can go backwards. Well, this is one, let me hang. So these are some slides from Quentin's Martin's project, the ACR True Wild Living with Lions project, has 3 names. So these are some of the first animals that he caught. I helped him catch a couple of these. And this is out there east of Santa Rosa and Rohnert Park. And you can see the yellow dots are a male, a large male. And he's covering the dots in 2 different locations of 2 females. So this is typical. One male might cover the territory of 2 or 3 females. And this is a female out in that same area, might have been one of those. And one thing that's notable here is how there's an edge to the territory. There's one edge is the development on Santa Rosa, Rohnert Park, and so forth. The other edge is Highway 12. So even a highway that's not that busy can be a limiting highway for a territory. And it can limit animals moving across the landscape and gene exchange and so forth. So it doesn't have to be an interstate. It can be a relatively small highway sometimes that prevents them from routinely crossing and going back and forth. So here we are out here. This is P36, who was captured. Maybe you can tell this story. Kate, you want to come up?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Remsen. I work for the Living with Lions project. I'm the trail camera project manager, and this is the closest mountain lion research project to Sea Ranch. So we do and have come up here to capture lions. This particular one, P36, went all the way down to the Golden Gate Bridge, saw it, said he couldn't afford it, and went back upstairs. Went back up to Bodega Bay. So they actually travel really, really far. And so he was originally captured in Santa Rosa and about 4 in the morning. And then he traveled all the way up to Healdsburg, Windsor area before he decided to make his way all the way down to the Golden Gate and then back up into Bodega. So this is just one example of a young dispersal male. He was about 2 years old, and he was just looking for his territory. And he found out that all these areas were previously already occupied by other males, or they were just not good areas. And he unfortunately ended up being shot in Bodega on a depredation permit.
We're going to talk about those quite a bit. So then the next one, okay, I'm going to tell this story.
So this one is a mountain lion that you may all know of. His name was Paul. And P14, actually, to the scientists, so he was also captured in the Santa Rosa area before he decided to go all the way up to Manchester, back down to Timber Cove, and kind of hang out on the coastal area. So originally, when he was first captured, he was captured on a llama farm, and this was a depredation permit. So landowners who happen to have livestock or pets can give us a call if they happen to lose any of their animals or stock to supposed mountain lions. They can call Quentin Martins, who's the lead investigator of the project, or myself, and we'll go out and determine whether or not it was an actual mountain lion kill. And if it was, we could actually use that animal that was killed as bait to capture the mountain lion. We'll put a collar on them, and then we'll release the mountain lion right then and there. And that particular landowner who had lost a large amount of her llamas to P14 decided not to call the state to, take out this depredation permit, but she decided to let us research the animal, which was really great because he ended up going the opposite direction up the coast rather than down to Golden Gate, which I think is the better option, right? North better than south. And so that landowner is actually a really big advocate for mountain lions now because she learned how to coexist with mountain lions and protect the remaining flock of her llamas. Unfortunately, the end of P14 was the same as P36. He was eventually killed on a depredation permit.
And to explain the terminology, a depredation permit is what the state will issue, or Cal Fish and Wildlife will issue for a landowner to kill a mountain lion if they've lost livestock. It's harder to get one than it used to be, especially in the southern part of the state where the animals are more regarded as at higher risk. But still, it commonly happens. And in fact, just yesterday it happened in one of our study areas down south in the Tehachapis. And we lost one down there. So you can see from this map, this is from the Sea Ranch website, the sightings map. So this is the bears and the mountain lions and so forth that people have reported seeing. So we definitely, they live amongst us. They are our neighbors. This is a picture from Sea Ranch not so long ago. So what we have found in terms of the impacts of depredation permits, they're the number one reason for mountain lion death in California. And this results from something like 900 collared mountain lions. So we know it's true. They're the leading, we humans are the leading source of death, either through livestock interaction and being killed as a result, or cars. There's a new study that's not yet published, but we're a part of, that suggests that the population in California is lower than previously estimated. So we certainly have less habitat than we used to have. That's kind of a given because of development. And then these retribution killings after livestock are killed, is apparently causing the population to decline. So one thing that we always look at that's part of our research, and this is Quentin's research, one of his slides, what's on the menu, predominantly deer. In this area, this was a study where they actually went to the feeding sites of the lions that were indicated by the data, and goats and sheep were part of the menu, actually a larger percentage in Sonoma County than in a lot of places, but nevertheless part of the menu. They're opportunistic. But at the same time, this is a different study that looked at what was in the scat, or the droppings of the mountain lions across the whole state. And again, wild deer are overwhelmingly the largest part of the diets, but a lot of small mammals too. All kinds of little critters are also part of their diet that are harder to find when you're looking just at feeding clusters. And then domestic animals are a small part of the overall puma diet across the state. So it's, they're not a big part. It's all up to us people. I'm going to kind of do a little preaching on personal responsibility, but we can prevent that, and we can prevent the decline of mountain lions primarily by just proper housing. So this is part of Quentin's slides, and we protect livestock. It protects lions, but it also protects the livestock. Livestock, live. One thing that's kind of an interesting finding across the state is that males are 3.5 times more likely to die in this way than females. And the theory is that they just cover more ground. They're just more likely to encounter, susceptible animals. But what has also been found, and this is what we preach about, is fully enclosed housing, guardian dogs, clear vegetation around the area so they can't sneak up on the animals, and then a variety of light and sound deterrents can be used. But Justin Dellinger did a study, looked at all the 30 years of these killings across the state, and he found that if a mountain lion was killed, usually a male, then the next year there were more incidents the following year. And this has been shown in other studies that when you remove, especially a territorial male, then young males move in to take his place. And you might have gotten rid of one animal, but you gained 3 as they come in and compete. And so you tend to have more incidents after removing an animal than you had before. So we don't, we try to discourage that. And the little pogo saying there, we have seen the enemy and he is us. That's kind of typical, isn't it? Humans and the environment. We're testing putting cloth shielding around livestock pens where the animals can't see where they might land if they are going to go in. And that seems to be effective in Africa to some degree with African lions and leopards. So we're testing that here, hoping that mountain lions also are reluctant to jump over where they can't see where they can land. And then we're doing lots of education. We're trying to start young, like the Happy Meal approach. You get them hooked young. Well, we're trying to work with the 4-H clubs and teach the kids about proper husbandry. And this is a particular protocol that we published for the 4-H clubs, but it's got a wolf on the cover. And I wanted to mention, wolves are now in California. They're spreading mainly east of here, but one of these days they'll show up here too, and the same principles apply. You have to protect the livestock because that's just one more predator on the landscape. But we hope that we get education resulting in tolerance. Other threats that we've identified are disease threats. You notice that when in the pictures we've got masks on, we're trying to not spread COVID to the mountain lions because they can get that virus and can die of it. We've also had them die of avian flu in California. I think we know of 6 that have. And now in the Sonoma County project, we've had feline leukemia virus that came from domestic cats being eaten that had feline leukemia virus. So and then one that died of rodenticides last year. So it's just a whole panoply of risks that they face out there. And in this last year, the Living with Lions project had 5 mountain lions that died of either disease or rodenticides or a combination. And overall, the camera detections of lions have declined by 2/3. So we're really concerned about the local lion population as indicated by them not showing up on camera nearly as much as they used to. Habitat loss, broadly speaking, is a challenge for all wildlife, but in California, 40% of the landscape is predicted as usable by mountain lions, but only half of it is protected. And we know that even though an area might be good habitat, if it's privately owned, for one reason or another, they tend to have lower survival. So more habitat protection is needed. In California, the populations used to be fairly structured into 2 to 4 big populations. Now they've been broken up into 10 distinct subpopulations genetically by highways and development. And each of these colors is a different population. 6 of those, because of high mortality rates, inbreeding, impacts of inbreeding on reproduction, 6 of the populations have been petitioned for listing as threatened in California, all of those on the Central Coast, south of San Francisco, and then on down into the inland mountains in Southern California. And this is the key thing to avoid that getting worse, which is right now the gene flow is up and down the coast and out into the central part of Southern California and then back out to the coast into the Santa Ana range. But all of those fresh genes from the big population are residing in the Sierra Nevada. And so attaching these populations to the Sierras is key for long-term health of those populations, and that's through the Tehachapi Range. And it's a fairly small mountain range, and it's interrupted by I-5 and Highway 58, both of which we are finding to be barriers as well. So it's kind of a grim picture from the standpoint of gene flow, but that's spurring a lot of effort to build new crossing structures and to cut down on roadkill. This is the sort of thing we need, is a nice tunnel for them to go through under a road. Good fencing is critical because we've had plenty of places where they had good tunnels, but they still got hit by cars because they don't always read the directions. You need to go through the tunnel. So fencing is key and it's very effective. And then this is a new overpass that's currently being built in Ventura County. That's incredible. It's incredibly expensive, but it's going to be one of the biggest in the world when it's finished. So what can you do? People ask this, what can I do? And, first, protecting your pets and livestock adequately, contribute to land conservation, wildlife research entities, and urge politicians to help wildlife more. Because a lot of what has to happen has to come through the legislature and funding, for crossings and things like that. Thanks.
Thank you, Winston. And I'm going to be introducing Meghan. So she's going to start her video and such. Meghan Walla Murphy has combined her passions for wildlife, writing, and people into vocations of habitat conservation and public outreach. As an educator, wildlife ecologist, and author, Meghan strives to help people connect with their external and internal landscapes. She has tracked animals for more than 2 decades, which adds a depth and breadth to her work in habitat connectivity and outreach. Currently, she is a lead of the North Bay Bear Collaborative and is collaborating on the reintroduction of sea otters to Northern California. Yay! She is an adjunct faculty member at the Santa Rosa Junior College, instructor for the University of California Natural History Program, and wrote the book Fishing on the Russian River and co-wrote a book on animal tracking with carnivore biologist Dr. James Halfpenny. For more information about her, she has a website, meghanwallamurphy.com.
Can you all hear me? Great. Well, thank you for showing up on this rainy day and taking the time to learn about the non-human world and all of us who get to share this incredible planet. So thanks. I appreciate you being here. And thank you, Linda and Diane Hitchwa, for inviting me, and Roberta. I really appreciate working with these women and the work that they do. And of course, here's a lovely mama bear up there, and I often get asked the question, why bears? And I think Okay, I hate these things, so bear with me. I move around a lot. Um, yeah, so people often ask me, why bears? And I think bears beg us to have boundaries. And they really ask us to be firm in where they're allowed to be and where they shouldn't be. And, if you've ever seen a bear lean against a tree or something, that tree will wobble if it's not firm. And so bears ask us to have good boundaries. And I like to start with this picture because I was working in Montana in Yellowstone. And it was really early, and I was actually out for pleasure that day. Well, it's always pleasurable working there. But, and it was like 4:30 in the morning in the middle of the summer, and I got to kind of curl up and not curl up, but watch this bear from very close. And the two little baby cubs were playing around and wrestling on the ground. And then Mama just sat down and they crawled up and started feeding. I was like, oh, how cute is this? I don't have children, but I have friends who have children. They're like, yeah, it can kind of hurt when you're breastfeeding and such. And all of a sudden I hear the mom go, and she like makes this horrible noise and she growls at her two little cubs. And, and they kind of calm down again, but they start tussling and kind of pushing and, nuzzling with each other. And I hear her growl again, and she's getting a little more insistent. And then a really bad, like, she screams. And then she just stands up, and the bear cubs roll off of her belly and down the hill. And I was like, oh, she has boundaries. She's real clear with her communication. And they ask us to have that same kind of clarity with them. And we'll get into that. I want to really thank Winston, too, because he's done a great job talking about depredation permits and all of these other things that are pretty much the same with the bear people. Before I move too far ahead, I just really like to give a deep sense of gratitude and thanks to all of the different teachers that have helped me in the vast knowledge that has come to get me to here today, including bears and plants and water. And I get to work a lot in South Africa with a lot of different people. But there's been a lot of knowledge to get me here, and to all the information that's been accumulated is really significant. I was asked to share a little bit about bear ecology, too, and bear behavior and some things that you might see when you're in bear country. And it turns out if you live here, you all live in bear country now. And that has not always been the case, and we'll get into that in a minute. But one of the other amazing things that bears do is they leave these things called step-by-step trails, or traditional trails, or ancestral trails. And they are incredible. So the one on the left is moving through grass. The one on right is through the duff of an oak forest, I think I was in. And what happens in these areas is a mama will teach her cubs to walk in the same footprints of the bears that have walked there generations and generations beforehand. And then those cubs learn to walk in these same footprints. And you can go on YouTube and you can do step-by-step trail, and there'll be 1,000 videos that come up. But what happens is when a bear hits one of these trails, if it's a little bear, they will extend their stride to make sure that they are stepping in the exact same footprints. And when they do, they kind of pop their elbows, and they'll do a little twisting motion, and they'll rock. And if it's a big bear, he'll shorten his stride to step in those same steps. And there are some that I've been told in Alaska that are several feet deep. I've come on them, and they're remarkable. They're really incredible. So you think oh, bears will always take the path of least resistance. Often they do. But sometimes these paths will be way out of the way, and they'll connect in this very circuitous route. No one really understands why they do it. It's some kind of deep form of communication. There's thoughts of oh, it's on paths to and from feeding, it's mating. But they're happening all the time, regardless if there's food there or not, regardless if it's breeding season. And they're incredible. And when you get there, if you've ever been to a museum and there's this incredible piece of art or a beautiful sunset, and there's this kind of quiet or a hush that comes over, that's what it feels like when you find one of these ancestral bear trails. It's not the same trail that you might, oh, there's bear tracks there. There's something happening. And it's incredible when you find them, which really bears this relationship between bears and humans. So bears have been living with humans for thousands and thousands of years. And you can all take a minute to read that while I just pratter on at you. And in that way, they've been sharing the same landscape, the same foods. There is a lot all around the Northern Hemisphere. The cultures that I have been able to work with have told me repeatedly, the bears taught us what to eat. I get to work a lot with the Kashaya tribe, of which we're on their homelands right now. And they are deep in the bear relationship, and they have said the same thing. Oh yeah, the bears taught us what to eat. And turns out many of the same foods that humans eat indigenously came and are the same foods that bears eat. And this is a picture of a bear digging for roots, and that's a young Karuk girl digging for something called osha, or bear root, which is a really incredible medicine for colds and coughs. And just this year, for the first time, I was up in the Sierras tracking bears and got to see where a bear had dug up osha root. I was like, oh, it's true, it really happens. But there's this deep relationship between bears and humans, and if you have ancestors from the Northern Hemisphere, it is likely that there was some person in your ancestry that had relationship with bears. A lot of our language and our sounds come from the sounds that bears make. There's an amazing book called The Sacred Paw by, I can't remember the title right now, by Paul someone. And he goes into how much of our language and our proto-languages came from bears and the sounds that they make. They're in the sky. There's the bear claw pastry. Maybe some of you have had that. It actually has a it's a remarkable story. But if you get into the historical ecology of the bear paw, it goes back to when people were living with bears in reference, and how important it was to see the bear paw in your life. And that could be 2 weeks of us just talking about that. But and all around the Northern Hemisphere, and still ongoing in California and areas where bear celebrations and initiations and dances. Being with bears was a huge rites of passage. So on the left is a statue of the Chumash bear dance, of which I've had the great privilege of going to, and is still ongoing in Chumash territory in Southern California, where I grew up. The middle is a bear mask from the Haida Gwaii Nation, right on the border of Washington and Canada, and even the polar bears were dancing. So the Inuit have deep polar bear dances. And this went way far beyond just North America. It was happening in Korea and Japan, or Siberia, Ireland, all of these places. And it's pretty amazing. One is a human hand and one is a bear hand. And so there's lots of familiarity, and people who were skinning bears and looking at them, they say, and I have done this too, if you were to take the skulls off the bear and the human, the entire skeleton of bear and human are very similar, with an exception of a few extra bones that are in the hands and feet of the bear. So the one on the right is the bear paw, and the one on the left is the human hand. Really remarkable. Which helps us understand, like, oh, how come I can undo the zipper on my backpack and open up peanut butter? You're like, oh, it's not just primates that have opposable thumbs. Well, they do really, but. So this takes us to, like, okay, well, what's up with bears in California right now, and specifically where we are? We live in a place that was predominantly grizzly bear. And, the northwest part right here, this Mendonoma coast, did have black bears, but as soon as you start to go south or east, it was predominantly grizzly bear, and most of California was grizzly bear country. And that's a whole other talk. So we have grizzly in the top left, and all the rest are black bears. So what happened through egregious hunting and extirpation that was very, very deliberate, the historical range of grizzly bear was shrunken quite deliberately and quite significantly. There is a Northern Cascade reintroduction program happening right now as we speak. But this map went all the way up into Alaska and all the way down into central Mexico. And through hunting during the gold rush to provide food, for deliberate killing because of livestock depredation, through a lot of just celebration, was the art of killing grizzly bears. And so actually last year was 100 years of the last grizzly in California. So we're now at 101 years without our friends around. And that's a significant loss for our ecosystem. We'll talk a bit about this. And ironically, this is the only place we see our bear now. But maybe with a lot of rewilding, by the time I die, they'll be back in certain places. No, don't worry, not around here. So let's talk about our black bear friends. The American black bear, Ursus americanus, is who we're talking about and who likely you've been seeing. There's a little video playing when we started. That is our black bear friend. Today, the only bears that are in California are black bears. They have a misnomer, though. They're not always black. It can be all different colors, and we'll look at that. So this is kind of an outdated mode, but the yellow gives you an idea of where they predominantly were, and the rest of those places shared territory with grizzlies or were only grizzly habitat. And this is a little bit more accurate. Even since this map came out, there isn't a new map yet. The range has expanded. Right now, some of the work that we're doing is showing that they are well and happy in Point Reyes right now, and you can see out there. And there was a bear spotted along the 101 corridor just east of the Santa Cruz Mountains. So they are on the move. This was all the way back in 2016, so we're looking at almost 10 years ago. But this trend of black bear population is continuing. Black bears are increasing in California. And it is believed all around North America right now. And as you guys know, this is just a clip that Diane Hitchwas sent to me, and you can see bear, bear, bear. They're here. And they're increasing in population around here too. So bear sightings are the norm. So it's exciting. It's actually a really good thing that we get to live with these creatures as long as we can understand how do we get to move around them, and what does that mean even for our own culture, and how do we get to be in relationship one more time. I love this quote. This comes from a friend. He's a grassland biologist, and he's a neighbor. I live in Occidental, and this is at Occidental Arts and Ecology Center, where this young dispersing male came in, and he sent out this email because this young bear, Sonoma County, like, why wouldn't you want to be a bear? We have like organic food and grapes and orchards. We're a foodie culture, right? They're like, yes, thank you. And a lot of people have fish emulsion. This bear drank 2 gallons of fish emulsion. He's like, yes, this is how I will make it through the winter, right? But what I love about this quote is that the bear doesn't see your fridge, your trash, your freezer as separate from their reality or their ecosystem. Like, that is food. And they're like, great, this is easy food, right? This is a lot of calories in a small area. And it really helps us to remember that a lot of the separation of us and them, or they belong there, we belong here, is a false separation. It doesn't really exist for the wildlife that we live with. They're like, we're hungry and we're going to eat. And as Winston was saying, so much of their habitat is changing and being broken up into smaller and smaller pieces. That kind of food that we leave out becomes a really important calorie source for them, especially when we're getting a lot of cold, rainy winters. And we can get into hibernation in a minute. So that kind of normal sighting of black bears led to the creation of what we call the North Bay Bear Collaborative. And we really started getting together in 2016 when the first bear cubs were caught on camera by California State Park biologist Bill Miller. He was living at Sugarloaf State Park. Maybe some of you have been there. And he had wildlife cameras up, and it was the first documented sight of a mama bear with cubs. And that was back in 2016, and that kind of mobilized state parks, regional parks, CDFW. I got invited to the meeting. There's maybe 5 or 6 different entities there, and we're like, wow, well, when bears are moving through, that is kind of one way of thinking about management, but when bears are residing in your area, it turns the light on, and you're like, okay, we need to pay attention to what's happening now. So we started talking about and stating, bear infrastructure in the state parks, and how do we get Recology on board and different things like that. And then we had a series of really intense fires. And so a lot of these organizations, the Tubbs Fire in 2017, really through 2020, took a lot of attention elsewhere. But in that meantime, I was getting lots of calls about, hey, there's a bear here. Oh, my goat just got attacked by a bear. Oh, there's bears in the vineyards. So independently, all of these people who I'd been meeting with, I was like, are you into this kind of bear group? Can we get this going on and on? And in 2019, we started meeting regularly, and we now meet quarterly, and here are the people who are part of it. We are growing continuously. We have 50 or 60 volunteers who we work with every year. We work with 3 different tribal entities, which I'm really proud of. We also work with a lot of ranchers. We work with the vineyards. Turns out bears love Pinot Noir more than any other variety. Turns out Pinot Noir are the most expensive grapes too, so they have great taste. You know, there's a lot of people involved in this because we want a lot of voices. The bear conundrum, you know, I jokingly say, oh, the bear NAMI is coming, folks. But it's true. Like, the bears are here, and there's a lot of different players and stakeholders who are involved, and it's really important that all these people are part of the conversation. Sonoma County is one of the most privately owned counties in California, 85 to 95% privately owned, depending on which statistics you choose to use. And we are the most parcelized county in California. So it's really important that you're talking to a lot of people. You know, I grew up in Los Angeles County, and there's more public space in Los Angeles County than in Sonoma County. Just saying. So take all your Southern California hate away. It treated me well. And I feel really honored because I get to learn a lot from all of these different people that we work with. So we share a lot of stories, and I'm going to definitely ask you to go out and share your bear stories. We are involved in some different aspects of research. We have a big mapping program that is informed by a lot of wildlife camera arrays. We share the same with, you know, Kate sends me her data, which I really appreciate, and Quentin and I have an ongoing conversation. So we're doing a lot of tracking and mapping. We are in year 5 of a DNA project, which I believe to date is the longest bear DNA project in California. And I cannot stress education enough. I think with bears, that's how it's going to work. You know, they're here. They're not going here. I had a phone call a couple years ago, and she's like, why are you letting bears into Sonoma County? And I was like, well, I don't really get to let them do anything. Like, you know, so the education piece is really, really fun and takes a lot of energy. So the more people who are out there speaking, the easier it will be for all of us, truly, including the bears. We also have 2 multi-year tribal youth projects. As I was saying, there's a long history of humans working and living with bears, and predominantly grizzly bears, and it was okay. Like, it wasn't really a problem. So in these tribal youth bear projects, we are teaching youth on vegetation transects and bear biology and ecology, and they're learning how to set up wildlife cameras. But then they are also working with their tribal elders and cultural bearers to learn about their history and with bears and what are the ways that they were communicating and moving through the world. And then we get to learn, like, oh, are there other ways that we can interface with these big, big animals? So back to someone, I think it was Roberta, she's like, make sure you talk about the DNA project. If you like scat, like I do, you too can like go and pick up bear scat for me. But I am actually quite serious. If you come on a bear scat in, you know, Sea Ranch, we want it. And Roberta here knows a lot about it. She's been to several of the trainings. It's really fun. You can be, we have a very funny, we have the emergency scat responder team. You can be part of that, or you could go out and do proper transects. So we are doing both. We have opportunistic scat opportunities, and then we have transects that we've been doing for 5 years, and you get to go out and learn a lot about bears and track bears. We are not collaring bears. CDFW has a bear calling program going on right now, of which certainly we will share data with them, but we are picking up a lot of information by tracking bears as to, like, you know, what trees are their preference, what are they eating, a lot of information. So it's nice that we have both working together. And you can reach out to me if you're interested in being part of this project. So here's a little bit about track and sign. So I like to start with this. It used to be a video and it only halftime works. So I just put the picture in. Everyone's like, oh, bears, they're carnivores. And yes, they are in that carnivora taxonomy level, but they're actually mostly vegetarians. Most of the bear's diet, about 85%, is vegetation. And I put this picture up because the video actually showed these bears just being lawnmowers and grazing for hours. And they pick and choose what forbs and flowers they like, but that's what they do. And right about now, as the green up is starting to happen, if they are out right now, usually the bears are down for a little bit, not quote unquote hibernating. Our bears along the coast don't hibernate, but they are eating a lot of grass. So you will find scats that are filled with grass, and they're going to be big scats, but that's all they're eating right now. And that to me is phenomenal, that these huge, large animals are making a living off of grass. So just some characteristics. I was talking about the different colors. They can be blonde, they can be brown, they can be a reddish cinnamon. There's even blue black bears. So someone will say, oh, I saw a brown bear. Yes, if you're in California at this moment, if you saw a brown bear, it is still considered a black bear. And that's an important thing, because a brown bear is also could be called a Kodiak bear or a grizzly bear, right? And that's kind of the term, oh, this is a brown bear, these grizzly bears. A black bear, though, can be a brown color. Clear as mud, but you got it. All right. They don't have the big hump that the grizzly has, and their ears are quite a bit larger. The females can get up to 250 pounds unless you're, quote unquote, Hank the Tank, who was really, does everyone know who I'm talking about with Hank the Tank? Hank the Tank was this big, big male that was, well, big bear that was in Tahoe. And because this bear was so big, like 550 pounds, they assumed he got the name Hank the Tank, but it was really Henrietta. So Henrietta was a lot, they did a DNA test because Henrietta was breaking into houses and there was saliva, and turned out she was a female. And so she was about 550 pounds, but she was hugely outside the norm. They're about, a 250-pound female black bear is a large female black bear. But the males easily and regularly will get up to 400 or 500 pounds. And they live quite a long time. So kind of what Winston was talking about, you know, when that bear or that mountain lion that you know is in your area, it's actually better to know who is there and have a relationship with that one male or female, rather than to kill or depredate that animal and bring in a bunch of animals you don't know, right? You can establish relationships with these animals, and back to that idea of like setting up boundaries, right? And if new bears move in, then you have new boundaries to set up. Kind of like isn't there something about know your enemy? I wouldn't really say they're your enemy, but like know who you're living with. Here's what their feet look like. These are actually pictures of grizzly bears. I haven't changed the slide out. But just ride with me for a minute. Everybody like wiggle your toes, just where you're sitting. And now put all your focus of your mind's eye on your big toe. Y'all doing that? Okay. Now imagine in your mind's eye, your big toe is where your pinky toe is, on the outside of your foot. That's how it is for a bear. So the bear's biggest toe is on the outside of their foot. And sometimes you'll see a barefoot print and you're like, oh, that's a big human. And you're like, oh, no, maybe that's a bear, because they look very similar, except that big toe will be on the outside of the foot. And on a beautiful day of tracking, you get these great kinds of tracks. These are front foot. You get the 5 toes. There's some claws. They have that kidney-shaped pad, which is equivalent to kind of our metatarsals right here. Food preferences. It's way easier to list what they don't eat than what they do eat. They eat pretty much everything. You know, bears, I always say bears map the world through their nose, and their nose is being informed by their bellies. They move through the world by sensing and smelling where food is, really. And so if you want to know where the bears are, think about where the food is at the moment that you're wondering. So right now, where are the big green fields, and where are the grasses and things like that? Or where's the easy trash? That would be, sadly, that's another way. as Winston was talking about, the bears, like the mountain lions, love those creeks and riparian corridors. They're moving down that. This was a bear that I was following, and this bear was moving down Stony Point in downtown Santa Rosa and hit the Santa Rosa Creek Trail and then dropped into the creek. And likely these bears that are popping up in the middle of the cities are young dispersing males. Their home ranges are larger and they're being booted out. And have you ever seen, this was, I think, May or June, and right around May or June, there's all those plums that are kind of like green, yellow. They're not quite delicious and ripe yet. Well, this little bear was just eating those unripe plums, and you could just follow this scat down the trail. Like, if you've ever eaten too much fruit, like that's how I feel when I eat too many cherries. At that time, I'm like, oh God, what have I done? But so they'll eat anything that's available at the time that it's available. Some other sign is they love to leave a lot of communication signs, and they're communicating with each other and all kinds of things. They break the tops off of trees. We're finding that in areas where there are Sargent cypress, they love the Sargent cypress, and that's a tree that's endemic to this area, to Sonoma County and serpentine soils, and they put out a lot of aroma. They smell delicious, but they'll break the tops off the trees, as you can see. Over there, my friend Preston. Was Preston in one of your slides? Anyway, never mind. Anyway, and he's holding the top of the tree on, and that is Ginny Fifield, and sadly she just passed a couple months ago. But she was a great mountain lion and bear advocate, actually. She worked for both these programs. They'll bite these trees, and then they'll rip the branches off, and then you can see those nubs. Well, just imagine you have a big black hairy fur coat on in summer and it's hot. Those nubs are like perfect back scratchers. And they will go up there and they dance all along these craggy parts of the trees and leave hair behind for us to do DNA analysis and see who's been there. It's great. They also bite big trees. And this is a little bit different. So they'll bite saplings to break off the tops and leave that kind of marking. But they'll also go up to trunks of trees. And if there's a tree behind my back, you can imagine the bear comes up, they hit it sideways. This is the tree. They take their incisors and they bite and they pull out. And you'll get these bear-bitten trees. And they're all around this area. I don't know about Sea Ranch per se, but I've certainly found them in the mountains just on the other side of Highway 1. And you'll start to see sign. And again, it's communication with other bears. They're amazing communicators. They like telephone poles too. If telephone poles stick out to us, and I just want to offer, if there's a land feature that's sticking out to you and seems like an anomaly, you can guarantee that it's sticking out to every other wildlife there, and they'll use those anomalies for communication. Telephone poles also have a lot of creosote, so they smell. So if you scratch them, that releases that smell as a communication. And they're quite tall. So that's my friend Lisa Moulton, a really great tracker. And she's about 5'8", and right where she's reaching, you can kind of see there's a little peel of bark up from there. That was where the bear was biting. So these bears are big when they're standing up on, that's well over 6 feet. And that's kind of what that looked like up close. Babysitter trees, yeah. They're so cute, little things. So bears, especially black bears, most of what I'm talking about right now is with black bears, have a really intertwined relationship with the trees. They are forest animals, whereas grizzlies were more like chaparral and grassland animals. So when a mama bear comes out of the den, she's got these 2 tiny little cubs. Well, when they're born, they're maybe about 8 ounces, and they're born in the den. She is in like something called torpor, but for ease, we'll call it hibernation. So she's sleeping, and these 2 little baby cubs come up and they crawl up her belly and they find her teats and they nurse. And now all 3 of them are in hibernation in the den together. And so for the time that she is in this hibernation state, she's not eating or drinking and not defecating, but she is being fed on, right? So by the time she comes out of the den, and it changes where you are, but around here it's March or April, She's essentially starving, right? So she has been in there for a long time, and her cubs have gotten quite a bit bigger. They're a pound and a half or something. But they are prey for everyone, for the bobcats, the mountain lions, the coyotes, the foxes, the eagles. But she needs to be able to eat and eat a lot of food quickly to recoup her calories. So this is a long time coevolutionary relationship that she will send her bears up the trees. And I've seen it happen. It's remarkable. She'll come up and she'll hit the bottom of the tree, and up the cubs go, and they find these big branches, and they go to sleep up there. And they hang out, and then she's able to feed while her bear cubs are safe in the branches of the big trees. And she feeds and feeds, and I don't know what makes her come back, if she hears them, who knows what the call is to come back. She comes back, the little cubs scamper down, and then she nurses and they go on their way. And this is documented all over. What we're finding in Sonoma County is the preference of babysitter trees here are the big old growth Doug firs. So it's an important ecological thing to know, because there's a lot of clearing of encroaching Doug fir trees, but it is their preference to use these trees as babysitter trees. And you'll find little bear beds at the bottom, and you find the cub bear beds and the big mama bear beds. And up they go, and you'll find their little claws going up there. So just be aware of that. It's super fun. Denning sites can be all over the place. I've seen some bears just den out in the open with just a little branch or two over them, or it could be a mother who's digging a very safe, secure site because she has cubs or she's about to give birth, and they can be quite deep in little holes. We don't know much, or I think I found one den site by chance. Well, I was tracking the bear, but we don't know much about bears denning in the North Bay and Napa and Sonoma counties. In Marin County, we're hoping to get more of that information with the collared bears from CDFW, and that will really help us with management policies and helping to educate the public about where bears are. Denning sites can be really different, like, I don't know, they can go under houses, and it can be just a day bed, or they can be under there for weeks and weeks at a time. Because we have food availability all year round, our bears don't go into a true hibernation like they do in parts of the Sierras or Alaska. They will wake up and go back down. They basically take long naps in the winter. And those naps can be from a couple days to several weeks, and then we get a really nice January, and they're moving around a little bit, and then they're probably down right now, and will be down for the next couple days to weeks. But there's a lot less movement and motion, during this time of year. I think we'll wrap it up with that, because I think my time is coming up. But really, one of the most important things is please, please share what you're learning. And I'm happy to answer questions. I know there were some questions about living and moving on with bears, but I think you had someone else to talk about that.
We will have a couple other people speak or proxy testimony for them. And then we'll open it up for question and answers, because I'm sure there's lots of things people would want to say. So thank you so much, Megan.
Great.
Hi, next up, I want to introduce Colleen Jansen and Rick Craig from the association. Colleen is our new Senior Director for Services and Communication, and Rick Craig is our Interim Associate Director of Resources, and they are going to speak about what the Sea Ranch Association has been doing in regard to the safety of the members and the Carnivore Awareness Tracker and Map. And if you want, I can give you my computer. So it's got the camera on it. Okay.
I just wanted to start by saying thank you, Linda, for putting together this fantastic forum. For folks that are on the Zoom, I hope you can appreciate the energy and the attention that is being given to these expert speakers. So thank you, Linda, for this forum. Thank you for the expertise from Winston, Kate, Megan, and others. And I'll let Rick share his perspective. He goes back many generations in his family to this land. But what we're doing at the association is really collaborating with these experts. We're trying to understand this coexistence collaborating with the experts, Fish and Wildlife, Recology, and really getting that awareness and education out to our membership, and also working in partnership with our broader coastal agency partners. So that includes, for example, our short-term rental agencies. We have a lot of visitors that come into the Sea Ranch to enjoy our trails, to enjoy the wildlife, and we want to make sure that people are coming in and familiar that not only do we maybe live in a rural community, we have people visiting that might not be as familiar with all of those patterns and behaviors. So we are doing, the small and big things to educate people. Leading up to today's event, we've been putting out a tip a week in our email info alerts about bear safety, using content from Bearwise. Of course, we support bear bin requests and things that members might want to be doing to just ensure that their property is ready. And the data collection was mentioned a couple times, that carnivore tracker. The experts that we're working with really appreciate having that data source to know what is the population of these animals. And it can lead to meaningful things. So our local biologist with Fish and Wildlife is keeping a keen eye on that tracker. She is interested in potentially coming out in the spring to help get a sense of what the population might be. And a little public service announcement, we will be looking for anyone who has some land that might help to facilitate that. So if you have any information about that, please feel free to reach out to me and we will pass that along to Fish and Wildlife. So those are just a few of the things that we're doing to create more awareness and education along this theme of coexistence. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rick for comments as well.
First bear I seen was
Get
in
to the microphone, please.
oh, sorry. First bear I seen was in 1959, 3.5 miles south of Point Arena. So we've been living with bears for quite a while. They love the manzanita. They love the huckleberries. Found a lot of scat. The biggest thing I could tell you people is take care of your garbage. Bacon grease, yogurt. I've picked up quite a few areas where the bear have scattered garbage. Yogurt is another big one. Sardine cans. Anything that's juicy waste. Take care of that. Personally, at my house, I will freeze any of my juicy waste and then put it in the garbage the day the garbage truck gets here. The three areas that we have quite a bit of activity that I've seen, and I'm not a professional bear tracker by any means. Long Meadow Timber Ridge is a pretty good avenue. Another one is behind Pine Meadow and the clusters. Could be the same bear. I'm not sure. And then, of course, we have the one at the north end. And that's the one that I'm calling Yogi Bear because he seems to be getting into more garbage containers than anything else. Correct me if I'm wrong, bears in this location do not hibernate.
You're correct.
So the bears do before a storm will try to get the protein they can. They are known to take down livestock once in a while, but not too often. Anything else that I can,
Okay.
is that good enough?
I know there was a bear that was hit by a car. Did you ever find that bear?
I think the gentleman that hit the bear, I think the gentleman that hit the bear is actually in the crowd.
Okay, then, okay, then I want to hear from you later. Yeah, okay, I'm looking forward to that. Okay, I'm going to then talk about, this is testimony that I got from Ambrosia Thompson from Recology. She wanted to speak to us by Zoom, but this is the cold and flu season, and she lost her voice. So I am going to be reading her testimony by proxy. She's a specialist, a waste zero specialist for Recology Sonoma Marin. She says, this is a topic that's important, especially if you live in the country, how to keep our household waste from attracting bears and other predators. First off, let's talk about what really attracts bears to our trash. It's not just our leftovers. They can smell those food remnants from quite a distance, whether it's in our garbage cans, compost bins, or even in recycling. Anything with food smells is like a dinner bell for them. Keep this in mind in the first step in our waste management journey. Now, managing our garbage effectively can make a huge difference. Here's a thought. What if we start securing our bins? I mean, really securing them. Using bear-proof containers or making sure our lids are tightly fastened with bear straps can be a game changer. And don't forget to schedule regular pickups to prevent odors from becoming stronger. If we let our bins go too long without regular pickups, it just becomes a smorgasbord for those curious bears. You might be wondering about using chemical repellents, right? We've all heard tips about using things like Lysol or Pine Sol around our garbage bins. But here's the kicker. They aren't really effective at deterring any wildlife and can cause them harm. Cleaning the bins with a simple baking soda and vinegar will help deodorize. Sure, keeping our areas clean is important, but those scents are not enough to keep a bear at bay. So let's talk about garbage holding areas for a moment. It's key to have enclosures that really trap those smells inside. Many of us might not think about it, but lined enclosures, perhaps with materials like sheetrock or hardybacker siding, can work wonders. This way we keep the odors contained and our garbage doesn't attract unwanted guests. Here's an interesting suggestion. Some folks recommend keeping your compost in the freezer and placing the compost bin the night before service. But let's be real. That might not be feasible for everyone, especially if you're short on freezer space. We might need to get creative with other options for managing compost without taking up all that precious storage. And she says, let's not forget about Recology walk-in service. This can be a lifesaver. It provides a safe way to dispose of waste without leaving it out overnight, where bears can sniff it out. It's designed with the intention of being bear smart, which is definitely a plus. Now let's discuss bear boxes. It's important to know how installing these boxes impacts our garbage collectors. They're great for keeping bears away, but we have to ensure that it doesn't make our waste pickups harder for the workers. It's all about striking that perfect balance. And finally, you might be wondering if we can use other kinds of waste bins besides those from Recology. Can we try containers with locking handles or bungee cords? These can definitely help prevent bears and raccoons from getting in. However, we need to check with Recology to make sure they don't interfere with their workflow. And I was hoping she would actually answer that question. Sorry. To wrap this up, it's clear that effective waste management is crucial for keeping our neighborhoods safe from bears. By adopting these strategies and sharing them with our community, we can help ensure a bear-free environment around our homes. Okay, and now I'm going to share something with you. This is Stacy from Sea Ranch Supplies started this. That is two different bear boxes next to each other. And they have them at Sea Ranch Supply. And they retail for $18.50 plus tax for one box. So there's two there. And there is a waiting list. They're expecting another shipment and they get 18 boxes in each shipment. So if you want to be added to the list, please stop by or call the store. And they also are going to be getting these garbage can straps for the trash lockers. You have to drill into the garbage cans for the 4-point strap harness for that. But I would check with Recology to make sure that they'll do that. And they're also going to be getting bear spray. And they'll have a hip holster or ring that can clip to your pants, purse, a loop on your pants. So they're going to be getting that. And one thing that hadn't been said yet is, and this is really important, that if you are a dog owner and you're walking your dog, be sure to, oh, I'll stop. Here's the bear with the bear box. And this was done by Pat Whelan. She gave me permission to show this. This was taken December 13th in her home near Halcyon and Deer Trail. You can see he's trying to get in, he or she, I don't know. Sniff, sniff, sniff. And gone. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And she's had videos since then, and the bear comes by, looks and like, this one again, and walks away and doesn't try to get as into it. But back to dogs, that if you have a dog, please walk your dog with a leash, because there are lots of animals around here. We don't want a dog to all of a sudden go squirrel and chase after it, or deer, or birds, or get tangled up with a mountain lion or bear. And if you are walking in the woods, you know, I love walking our trails in the woods. You might come across a bear or a mountain lion. And that's what the bear spray is for, in case you come across them and maybe they've got cubs and they might get protective. So the only place I know right now that is going to have it is Sea Ranch Supply. I did ask Walla Sport and Tackle, and they weren't certain if they could get it or not. I also asked JR's, and they didn't have it. But if you were to go in and ask if you wanted bear spray, they might try to get it. Okay.
Just
Yeah.
jump in on the bear spray thing.
Yeah.
Hey, bear spray is a really kind of wiggly thing, because you really have to know how to use it, or you can injure yourself pretty easily. So make sure that if you choose to go with bear spray, of which I don't think is necessary. I spent, at least as far as bears go, I've spent a lot of time with bear encounters, and I only carry it in grizzly country. But please learn how to use it. I went through like a one-day course, making sure like you don't spray yourself, you know how the wind is, you know where the aim goes, because it's actually very close. Like you need to know a lot of different things. And I've seen more people actually do themselves harm, or their pets or their children harm. So just really make sure you're being educated when you use it. It's like pepper spray times 100. So you can do, thanks. I just got nervous.
Right. So maybe a bear whistle would be better. Okay. So
Yes.
it's now time to open up for questions, but I'd love to hear the story about the bear in the car. So if you want to come up and speak into the microphone, that would be great. And if Pat Whelan is online, you can raise your hand and I'll try to call on you. Yeah, go. Yes, yeah. You may have to turn it on.
Hello, 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 hello. The evening of December 18th, leaving the lodge, heading home north on Highway 1. My wife and I, we're approaching the turnouts for the fire department and the chapel on the right-hand side. And in really a nanosecond, at pitch black at night, there was even this darker mass. And in the split second that I saw it, after my wife Michelle saw it, I saw a brown snout and then a large boom. And so she basically raked the right side of our car. Thank God it was not a head-on, so it would have been a whole different story. And of course, our hearts sank because, you know, they're here first, and you know, it was kind of gut-wrenching. We were able to turn around and come back to see what the remains might have been, and you know, the bear had left, and there was no sign of the bear. And then the next morning, was it Rick came by our house, looked at the damage on the right side of our car. It's interesting to see extensive damage on a car without a paint scratch. So the bear had crushed the front right headlamp, caved in the passenger side door, and the right rear quarter panel, all the way down the side of the car. So this bear was presumably hurt, although there's been no news of a fatality, thank God. I will add also that a few days later, I'm on the golf course at the tee box on the 18th hole, which is not that far from where this incident occurred, and a giant scat, just huge scat, like 12 inches long, 7 inches across. I think I have a picture somewhere, full of I think huckleberries. So a lot of undigested berries, and then God knows what else. And over the next 4 or 5 days, there may have been some rain or something, I forget. It started to deteriorate, and a lot of paper emerged from the same scat. So I was hoping that this was our bear, because it would be a sign that the bear didn't go off to die somewhere. But that bear had a headache at the very least. The front headlight smashed completely, and right on down the side of the. So they can take a licking, that's for sure. But just so the warning, I guess, if I have anything to advise, is we're all looking for deer, obviously. We'll add bear to the list on Highway 1. And if you're like me or my wife Michelle, at night, when we drive here at night on Highway 1, we're driving 35 miles an hour. And if some yahoo wants to come up behind me, he's going to have to work to get around me, because we're just looking for wildlife. I mean, it's part of the experience. Anyway, that's my crazy bear story. Nothing that $7,500 in insurance couldn't take care of.
No.
For answering that mental question I had. Okay, I see someone, JN online, that wants to ask a question.
So hi, actually it's Pat Whelan. That's just our computer name.
Okay, thanks, Pat. So if you want to give your
Yeah.
story.
Well, thanks so much, Linda. It's wonderful information. So we've been homeowners there for 13 years, and our first bear problem was like 2 years ago. So prior to that, we'd never had any kind of a problem with the bear. We do not have a garage. A lot of homes have nice garages, and maybe people can keep their garbage in the garage, but we have a nice wooden, structure, a trash shed that's actually large, and a couple of doors, and everything was secure. But that's where we kept our garbage cans. And so 2 years ago, the bear came by and discovered it, and he really almost demolished the shed and ripped the door off, and there was garbage, in our can in there, and he made the big mess. So we got that all repaired, and it wasn't but a month or so later, he came back and did the same thing, even though there actually was no trash in it when he did it. But the repair is expensive for us, and we just didn't have a different solution. So we got that repaired, but then that's when we got our bear box. And at that time, Stacy wasn't carrying them yet, but there's a fella that has it's called Tahoe Bear Box at Lake Tahoe, and someone on the listserv, mentioned him, and I called him, and he said, well, I need, at least 2 boxes to be ordered to make it worthwhile, because it's an 8-hour drive for him to come from Tahoe one way. And so I wanted 2 boxes. So and I put it out on the listserv, and then a couple other families, homeowners, were interested, and they signed up too. So he came down for 3 homeowners, and he brought our bear boxes, and his name is Randy, the owner of the bear box. Tahoe Bear Box. And he called Sea Ranch Association prior to that coming down. And they got a lot of information from him about the actual boxes and the sizes and all of that. And they approved his product. And then Stacy has since, subsequently started carrying them, and it's just there's been so much interest in it. And for us, once the boxes arrived, so we've had them for 2 years now, and we've never had any more damage at all. The bear has visited us regularly. In this past December, he came by 3 different times. We set up a critter cam. So, and you saw the quality of the video. It's just up close and personal. And he's come by, but no damage for us. And I've tried to post on the listserv so people know there is a frequency and a pattern. And the other thing that I found interesting is that from today's talk is behind our property, we do have a seasonal creek that rushes in the winter like a river. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But that, I think we're just part of his, his pattern, he passes through now, often from the back forest where the creek is. And lots of people in our vicinity have had bear visits, and numbers of them with damage to their property. So, and we're on the north end. We're on the north end of Sea Ranch off of the Halcyon and Deer Trail. So that's our story.
Thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
Well, come on up to the microphone. Yeah, wait.
Hey neighbors, my name's Mary. My wife and I are here half-time, and we're also on off a Deer Trail on West Wind and very close to Halcyon, right? So we're all talking about the same area. She was up here by herself about a month ago, and a bear came about 10 o'clock at night. She just heard a scuffle and a bunch of noise, and she didn't even go outside. Our dog happened to be with me and not up here. And so the bear just went right for our green bin. I mean, it was like so classic. It's like what we've already heard here tonight. They're just going for your garbage, and they like the wet stuff. And we cook a lot of vegetarian stuff. And so it's all in there. And I've since then have gone and looked at like the tracking site about where the bears are. And there are a number of pictures up there, and people have these cams. And every single cam I've seen and every single picture I've seen of the aftermath, the bears are not going in the blue bins. They're not going in the gray bins. They're going right for that green bin, and they're opening it up and they're dumping it out. For us, it was like all over our yard and all over the commons next to ours. We are, fortunate enough to have a garage. So since then, we've been, tucking it into like a, pretty good, solidly sound garbage bin with a couple of contractor green bags in it. And that seems to be working. I don't think so far they haven't taken a crack at the garage door. But I just wanted to say that our experience, while very exciting, all the neighbors came out, oh, you had a bear visit. It was very consistent with everything that we've heard here tonight, which is, they're not here for us. We're certainly not their favorite food. But they want that green bin in particular. And I've also noticed that if you look at the map of where things have happened at Sea Ranch, we just got those green bins, a year ago or 8 months ago? That's when we're seeing these things. Anyway, that is my, layperson perspective. Thank you. Thank you for all of you guys who helped us tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mary. Is there anyone else? Oh, come on up and ask your question or give your story, whatever. Okay, then please do it to the microphone.
I used to live part-time on the west coast of Vancouver Island. And at one time, I actually had 6 bears that regularly come to my beach. So I have quite an experience with bears. My bears were always afraid of dogs that are barking. They would go up a tree or they would just run away, even if the dogs were barking in the house. I've been very lucky with that. With bear spray, you have to be very careful the direction of the wind. Because if you're spraying into the wind, you get the bear spray. And it's really very, very bad. So what I noticed is there is a spray for wasps. Bear spray is like a shotgun. It comes out like this. The wasp spray is more like a rifle. And you can be like 18 feet away and still hit your target. Bear spray, you have to be a little closer, again, depending on the wind. So, and then there are bear bells, which a lot of people in Canada use, which I think is it's just terrible because you're walking in a quiet wood and you hear ding, 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 and it's just awful. What I told my guests up in Canada, if they're walking in an area where there are a lot of berry bushes and you can't really see too far from the trail, just have a conversation, or if you're alone, have a little stick and keep hitting the bushes. Just make a little noise so the bear is not surprised if it's in the middle of a berry patch. Because you can't see it, but they can hear you. And as long as they're not surprised, as long as they don't feel cornered, they're generally not a problem with people. If you look up statistics, there have been very, very few incidents in the US and Canada where black bears have actually hurt people. Hardly anybody has ever been killed by a black bear. So just be careful.
Thank you. I see online there's Ellen Feigenbaum has her hand raised. So if you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. We just about a month ago, our camera picked up that there was a bear. It also destroyed our garbage bin, trying to get what it could to eat. Fortunately, we weren't actually home at the time. But what I'm worried about is, so it's only about 15 feet from our front door, and we go out at night sometimes to take a walk. This was around 9 o'clock when it was there. Our camera records the time. So when we're there, we're part-time, and we go out and want to take a walk at night, or our adult children do the same with their little kids and or pets. What is your best advice, or the expert's best advice, for what to do so no one surprises the bear? Because again, it's just about 15 feet away from our front door. Again, the person who just spoke had some good ideas about just making noise, but I'm wondered if the experts agree that's enough, that the bear will leave the food and leave quickly before it could be surprised and maybe lash out.
Great, thanks. Can y'all hear me? Let me just stand up again. Great, thank you for your question, Helen, or Ellen, sorry. Yes, the woman who spoke up and said, make some noise, that's really your best bet. So when you come out of your door, just look around, take a minute instead of just rushing out and see who else is out there. There might be a really cool hummingbird, or there might be a bear. And so to just slow down is really important. And then making noise, like when I'm in grizzly country, I'll be like, hey, are there any bears out here? You know, literally making noise, like I'm coming out. I'm coming into your space now. The other thing, again, is if you have the option, putting your trash in a contained area so that you and that bear may not come together. But you know, to the point of the story of the gentleman who hit the bear, bears are pretty hardy. So a big bear prevention is hazing bears. Like shout at a bear if you see a bear and the bear's not backing down. Wave your arms, get really big. Winston had a slide up there. Don't turn around and run. That triggers a lot of different responses in wildlife. So you want to get big, you want to stand your ground. It is completely appropriate to throw stones and things at a bear. I know people are like, well, I don't want to hurt him. You're not going to hurt this bear. I like guarantee you. Like, I've seen bear cubs fall like 20 feet out of a tree and they're like, oh, okay, great, next. Bears are hardy. They're incredible. And not that we want to hurt them, but you throwing a rock is not going to be a problem. Hazing projects include like paintballs, rubber bullets, lights, sound, even water guns. You want to make that bear really unpleasant to be around you, right? There's a saying that it's easier to teach a bear than it is to make a bear forget. So once a bear has identified your space as a source of food, it's really hard to make that bear forget. And many of you have said, oh, they can't get into the trash anymore, but they're going to keep coming around because they got a lot of calories from you. It's like you might all have your favorite grocery store, your favorite restaurant. You keep going back until, it's not good anymore. So it's very appropriate to make it uncomfortable for that bear, because in CDFW speak, once that bear is habituated, it's a very quick tumble to that bear being killed. So the less habituated a bear becomes, and habituated means comfortable around humans to where it won't back down. That's kind of a very quick definition of that. But once it's there, that bear is going to get into trouble, sadly. And largely the reason those bears are getting into trouble is because our boundaries weren't tight enough, right? And we allowed that bear to push up against us and we didn't say no. It's really important to really scream no at a bear. It's okay.
Thank you.
Erin, did you want to speak? Come. Yep. Wait, the microphone.
More to
Or to- in the microphone.
Recology about how come they don't offer us bear-proof cans here in Sea Ranch? Because they have them, I believe, in the Tahoe area. Maybe you guys. Okay.
Well, I was just going to add on the going out at night with the little kids, just emphasizing keeping them really, really close, not just sort of, 10 or 15 or 20 feet away, but really right beside you from the mountain lion danger perspective. Just wanted to add that.
Since Ambrosia is not here, she can't answer that question. I don't know if Recology is the same company that's up in Tahoe. It may not be.
It's not the same, but we are working with Recology right now. So Sonoma County Regional Parks is part of our team. And right now, Recology is in a pilot project with parks here to start looking at bear-proof dumpsters that are going to work. So what I would like to say is it's really going to take all of you putting pressure on Recology. We have tried, and I'm like, it's better for us to be proactive than to turn into kind of a Tahoe situation. And I think you all have a lot of leverage. You are their customers. So the more pressure you put on them for help, because these bear boxes can be quite expensive. So that will really help. They don't have bear containers.
So in Montana, we all have bear-proof trash cans that look just like our trash cans here, but they have a latch that you have to get by hand. And like our trash can in Montana has like bear bites all over it, but they work.
Yep.
And so you pay a little extra, and it's Republic Services. So it's like, it just seems like with bear issues that this would be like a common talking point for Recology to talk to maybe Republic Services in Montana and then figure out a can and blah,
Right.
blah,
The
blah.
difference is, trust me, I've been working, like, the thing is, this is really novel in Sonoma County. So we're looking at over 100 years of not living with bears. So this is like black bears are colonizing areas where they haven't been at all, where it was grizzly country and then it was no bears. So where you are there is a historical legacy of black bears being here, but as the population is growing, we're seeing more and more. So thank you so much, Erin, and I really please put pressure on Recology. That will help us. That will help you. That will help us to help you. And there's a lot of really great websites. There's bearwise.org, and I love bearsmart.com. They teach you how to bear-proof your own trash can for like $10, how to do bear-proof composting, bear-proof beehives. We're working with Sonoma County Wildlife Rescue to have them go out and walk around your place and be like, how does this work in the bear world? So yeah, thanks. Put pressure on Recology, help us.
My story is a little bit different. I've already talked to Winston about this. I live up on the east side, and a bear came and attacked my outdoor furniture. I had two big teak lounge chairs with cushions on them, and he or she picked up one of them and threw it. I can't pick it up. And then attacked the cushions. And I have a 210-foot driveway, and there was cushion material all the way down to the street. No problem with the garbage. I don't put my garbage out anyway. And I also have scratches all over my alder trees. Is it likely that they're just playing? Are they going to come? Are they going to come play again?
Maybe it's like catnip for bears.
Yeah. So there's this weird phenomena that happens that bears will eat the tops of hot tub covers because of the foam that's in them. There's something in there that's
Was the
enticing.
foam? There's
Yeah.
foam everywhere.
Yeah, so it's enticing,
be
and it's
terrible.
fun, and it might feel really good. And that, if you played with putty, silly putty, it's fun, right? And like they love to play, and they're very curious. I have no idea if the bear's going to come back or not, but yeah, I would guess that it's a playful thing and just curiosity. They're deeply curious, and you might
Terrible
lounge it.
spa cover.
It was exciting.
Yeah.
So hold on. Pat, did you have anything else you needed to say? If not, please mute yourself. Thank you.
Okay.
Woman back there has had a hand.
Okay, well then she needs to come up.
Can you hear me? Yeah. I'm Dean Wolf. I live on Whitetail, about a half a block west of Deer Trail. And I'd be curious to know what it is that Sea Ranch is doing, or more than that, what are we in general doing about renters, short-term renters? We've had two in our neighborhood. Both of those boxes have been broken into, and they've also now decided it's in our backyard. They've come and bent over a couple of bird feeder hooks. We don't put those out anymore, and nobody that lives in our street, to my knowledge, has had bear damage except the rental houses. I'm also interested in knowing what Sea Ranch Association is doing in respect to the Sea Ranch Apartments, or Burbank Housing, as it's called. Was in the post office the other day, and one of the residents was bemoaning the fact that bear keeps visiting their neighbors. Their neighbors don't have a lot of space. There's a lot of people. They had actually put a freezer in their garbage enclosure area, and the bear, of course, got into it and ate all their steaks or whatever food, whatever meat was in there. But it seems like it keeps on happening, and to my knowledge, the folks in that development they don't have some sort of a organized effort to improve their capability.
Thank you. So 2 questions there. One was related to short-term rentals. What is the association doing on that front? And then the second being specific to Burbank Housing or the parts of the Sea Ranch that may have limited waste receptacles. So on the Sea Ranch, or on the short-term rental topic, I have just completed, I have one local agency left to meet with, but we have been undertaking a concerted effort to meet with the rental agencies. So that's the large nationals like Vacasa and Grand Welcome, but it's also the local rental agencies like Beach Rentals and Sea Ranch Escape, et cetera. So we have been doing info exchange with them and really letting them know, like inquiring about their practices. What we are hearing from the rental agencies is that most of them are requiring that the homes in their rental program have walk-up service. And we have also been working with them on whether or not, what their practices are for taking waste when someone checks out, if it's not, in close proximity to a waste collection day. So of course, we can't police every short-term rental, but we are trying to share the information. The rental agencies have been very interested in in our carnivore tracking map and our population monitoring. We also track the incidents reports that come through the security team. So our security team keeps a log when there's a report of a bear enclosure. We are sharing that home that you referred to. I was in conversation with the agency that manages that home just last week. They told me that that enclosure has been rebuilt multiple times, and they are going to the bear bins as an alternative to help address some of this. So we are trying to share information as much as possible. I do also want to make clear that more and more rentals on the Sea Ranch seem to be going by way of the kind of buy owner model. The rental agencies that I am connecting with, I only have one meeting left to go. I've completed 6 of the 7. They seem to be very aware of this and compliant and taking the waste off site if the collection is not close to the time that someone checks out. We may have more of an issue with the, doing it on your own kind of Airbnb buy owner model. So we are also working with Permit Sonoma, which rentals are going to be required to be permitted, licensed, and have a 24/7 certified property manager beginning in April of this year. And that 24/7 property manager contact ensures that we have someone to call who is accountable to that property if it's a short-term rental. So we're trying to kind of work this from multiple angles with Permit Sonoma. Of course, all those homeowners who have short-term rentals have to get through that permitting process, right? There has to actually be a license, a permit, et cetera. But those are the kinds of things that we're doing to, number one, share the information, make sure that we have accurate records about who is the contact for that short-term rental, make sure that our security team is following up and reporting things, and then making sure all that data is flowing back so we can actually keep track with some records to actually get a count of this. On the Burbank topic, I don't have an answer for you about is there a solve related to the garbage enclosures, but I can take that as a follow-up.
Thank you. Thank you. Sure. And then there's someone else right after you that wants to speak. So
one day, the bear comes, visits, tears their enclosure apart, gets the stuff and kind of brings it between our 2 houses. And one day we looked out, and there it was again. So I went on over early in the morning and I thought to myself, this is really inappropriate. I banged on the door, a guy comes to the door and I said, so what kind of wine did you have? Was it this bottle? And he says, oh no, we just moved in last night. Somebody else had been there. However, they had no idea there were bears. And those folks have a hot tub that's surrounded on 2 sides and out in the open to another. So they're out at night in the dark and maybe taking a walk, maybe not. I would assume that it would discourage people to come up here if the rental agencies had big signs that said, bears around, be careful. But at the same time, I think the agencies owe it to and the owners owe it to the people to at least alert them to the fact there might be something to be worried about.
Yes. So some of the agencies are more open to sharing and disclosing that in the checkout process. Other agencies are less interested in that. Nonetheless, we have, and there are materials at the back of the room from Bearwise. We've actually been distributing the Bearwise materials that include safety tips for visitors, what to know when you're inside the house, what to know when you're outside the house. And we have been encouraging the agencies to include this material in the information. I know sometimes it goes in the binder that nobody reads when they're on vacation because they're not worried until they have a problem. But we are making it available. We are increasing the awareness and education of that topic. And I appreciate the comments.
Make a suggestion, they put that in front of the restaurants that are in the area. Okay, come on up.
My name's Leland Falk. I run the sheep here in Sea Ranch. We've been grazing here for almost 20 years now, over 20 years. I'm fifth generation from right here in northern Sonoma County, and the bears have been here. I don't think they ever went away. We have historical documentation of bears that go back over 100 years. What I've seen anecdotally, and you guys gave a lot of great information tonight, and thank you for that. Anecdotally is the predator pressure has gotten a lot higher in the last 5 to 7 years, whether that's fire or the black bear population is peaking, because it kind of is. If you look at Fish and Game Bear Management update, it went from in '89, there was roughly 20,000, he showed the graph, 20,000 bears, and now there's roughly 65,000 bears in California. So in 30 years, it's tripled. But it also says that the numbers have stabilized. And so we've kind of reached, carrying capacity, arguably, for the landscape. And so what we use, we use electric fence, which keeps out, 95 to 99% of the bears. The guy that hit the bear, the day later, I don't know if it's that bear. A bear came in through my electric fence and killed 2 lambs, I think, because it was probably injured. And it probably, if you're going to get hit by a car, you're probably going to take a big dump and be hungry afterwards, which I did let Sea Ranch know that happened, and I also let Fish and Game know that happened. My concern was over safety of my worker, because if there is an injured bear and it's going to take the risk to go through an electric fence and get in with the guard dog, it's probably injured, because I haven't had that happen in a long time. And I just want to express that it would hurt to get hit by a car, regardless of who you are. And so the probability that that bear was injured is probably high. And we do live in a neighborhood, and there is liability in that. I just want to express that and offer that viewpoint. I think it's important that these conflicts are going to come up more, especially with wolves coming in. They're going to put more pressure on our wildlife. My understanding is in other states, and you may correct me, that as the wolves come in, your mountain lion population goes down along with your bear population, because they'll be eating the young and competing for food sources. How long that takes to actually affect us, it's probably in the decades. But in the 20 years running on Sea Ranch, I haven't had to have a guard dog until recently. Typically in the past, mountain lions would come, and if I had one kill, it wasn't a big deal. They would move on. There was so much deer everywhere that there was an abundant food source. And now the mountain lion killing pattern, in my opinion, has changed a little bit. I called it glory killing, but arguably what they're doing is coming in and they'll kill 10 or 15 sheep in a night, and they're feeding the bears is what they're doing. So they can get away from the bears, or they have enough to kill, because the bears will kick them off of kills. And if you don't eat, you have to kill again, and you have to kill again. And so what we're seeing now, sometimes even with guard dogs in the field, that you can get a massive, bunch of animals get killed. And that's just the mountain lion, they're just playing their game, right? And so what my stress is the importance of guard dogs. I feel bad sometimes for the communities. I hear feedback, damn dog's up barking all night, stuff like that, which it is. I feel bad. It stresses me out that there's a 120-pound dog barking next to your guys' house all night. But there's no other way to keep my sheep alive. They will eat every single one if I don't have it. And so just so you guys understand that, and you hear me say that it's absolutely necessary that we have them. And I have to go through the neighborhoods for the fire hazard reduction program, and I have to be able to protect my animals. And it doesn't matter if there's a human out there all night. Or I've been out there. A lot of you probably seen me sleeping in my truck, out there running around with a flashlight at night. And so this just we're going to have conflict, and we just have to work through that. But I have whatnot, and And in small landscapes and small herds, you got 10, 20 animals bring in the barn every night. But, you know, we're pushing 300-400 animals grazing 1,000 acres a year over 3,000 acres, however big Sea Ranch is. This is a large scale operation. And so bringing them in a barn every night isn't feasible. And so we're relying on the electric fence and the guard dogs to minimize conflict. And so I just kind of wanted to give you guys a perspective of from the sheep program and the kind of things that I have to deal with in my livelihood and that.
Thank you.
Is there any questions? Go ahead.
If you got a question, come up to the microphone so we can hear.
Question, can you hear me? My question is, how often do you have attacks? Like every month or how many times a year maybe?
It varies. And one of the things that really, especially for the bears, we also are in the vineyard business and grape business. It's so dependent on the huckleberry crop. Huckleberries are the local bear food source. We had a poor huckleberry crop this year. The bears are in the communities. There was more pressure on the vineyards. If we have an abundant huckleberry crop, the bears typically leave the vineyards alone and there's less pressure on livestock. Mountain lions, you know, it comes and goes in waves. With guard dogs, and you know, I've been out there and been from here to the wall from a mountain lion with a sheep in its mouth, and you know, what you do is I have a flashlight that will probably blind you for the night when you shine it in your eye and run it off and throw rocks at it and get them out of there. But I've also done that, then have them come back, and when I fell asleep finally at 5 in the morning and kill sheep. And so the thing with mountain lions is they move more, I think, than bears do. I mean, but they're all opportunistic animals and they're a bit on the lazy side. Like if there's a food source that's abundant and available, they're going to use it. So if we can deter them and force them to leave the area, then they're going to leave the area and they're, you know, go back to their natural food source or whatever. But it comes and goes in waves. I've had real bad runs and I've had times where it's been a couple years since I've had an issue. And so it comes and goes in waves. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to ask? Then come on up.
My name is Marianne. I live
Speak into the microphone.
I live on the south end of Crow's Nest, and what I was hoping the woman from Recology was going to be here because a lot of times on Monday our green bins do not get picked up, and we have complained about it, and they come back the next day and pick it up, but you know it's not good. The other thing is, I have to tell you a story because there's other animals that can get into your house. If you have a solarium with a screen window that's down, make sure you close it at night because I had a situation where I was asleep. My dog that was deaf and blind was in the living room. Thank God she was deaf and blind, but a raccoon kicked in the screen of my window, came in, and what woke me up was this bang, and the raccoon came in and opened my freezer door. And not only that, so I came running into the kitchen and outside was all these other raccoons and they were waiting to see what was going to happen. So, you know, there's other things. And also a bear can rip the door off your car because that happened to a friend of ours that lives north of here. Don't leave any food in your car. Make sure your windows are closed because your car will be ruined.
Thank you, Marianne. Is there anyone else? Okay, there was an umbrella in the back. If there's no other questions, I don't see any online. I want to mention that there were a couple books that both Winston and Meghan had recommended, and I sent those in advance to Jill Blue of Four-Eyed Frogs. So she was going to order some of them, and some might be there, but there may also be coming. So if you're interested in finding out more about these magnificent creatures, you can go to Four-Eyed Frogs, and I saw that they're actually moving their store this week. So don't go there on Thursday and Friday, okay? There are handouts in the back of the room. I also wanted to thank Craig Tooley for sharing with me photos from Mountain Lion and Bear for my promotional use for this forum. So the files for this meeting, the recording of the meeting will be turned into a YouTube video. And if you want to be notified of it when it is available, please be certain you're added to the forum's mailing list. There's a sign-up sheet in the back, or you can go to the website and sign up there, which is thesearanchforum.weebly.com. Our next forum is Saturday, March 29th, and will be the annual Sea Ranch Board of Directors Candidates Forums. Questions are being solicited in advance, and you can send them through the website or by email to thesearanchforum@gmail.com. Please be concise with your questions, or they may be condensed because they shouldn't be longer than 1 minute spoken. Any question our moderators will be posed to all questions, so make sure your questions are framed in that manner, and anything that's not asked will be forwarded to all the candidates so they can answer them on their campaign websites if they choose to do so. And they can also be submitted day of the event, but written on note cards. Lastly, a tradition for the Sea Ranch Forum is that we stack the chairs to assist our wonderful facility and resources crews. So thank you again for coming out on this wet Saturday.
Friends that live at the hillside of Sea Ranch, they